and gentlemen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Muiponi Mhlongo. I am the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee for Education. We want to apologize that we have not yet started. Stakeholders have been arriving in drips and drabs, and they are just getting them from the lunch area to come inside and join us. We should start in the next 10 minutes. I am going to request that perhaps the groups that are at the back, we try to fill the tables that are in the front first, and then other people that are coming in later can come and sit at the back so that they don't really disturb our proceedings whilst we are in the middle of the sessions. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 14:40, as I would have requested that we start. I am going to request that we start with our meeting. Greetings again, and to say my name is Muiponi Mhlongo. For those that were not here when I indicated earlier, I am the Portfolio Committee Chairperson for Education in the Gauteng Provincial Legislature. I am not here alone today. I'm here with my colleagues from the Portfolio Committee. Before I proceed with anything, I'm going to request that they introduce themselves, starting from my far left.
No, thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to honorable members and all stakeholders present. My name is Franz Ngubeni. I'm a member of the Portfolio Committee. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Thank you very much for opening this meeting. Good afternoon to all the stakeholders. My name is Sergio Dos Santos and a member of this committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lindwe Mkwanazi. I'm a member of this committee, Education Portfolio Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mam Kwanazi. Let me request maybe HOD yourself to just make an introduction.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chairperson, Honorable members, and the stakeholders. My name is Albert Cheney. I'm the Acting HOD for Education. And maybe just to, on behalf of the MEC, indicated he's on his way. He'll be joining us shortly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Colleagues, the MEC is almost here, but we thought let us start in respect of yourselves as stakeholders who would have arrived on time. Colleagues, in line with the rules of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, I declare Radisson Hotel Convention Center in Johannesburg or Tambo Airport, Estate 154, corner 3rd Avenue and 6th Road, Bredel, Kempton Park in Gauteng of South Africa, as well as its surrounding premises as the precinct of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature as follows. I, Muiponi Mhlongo, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee, hereby declares Radisson Hotel and Convention Center, OR Tambo, and its surroundings as the precinct of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature in terms of Rules 56 of the Standing Rules of the Gauteng Legislature, read together with Section 1 and 2 of the Section 28 of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act of 2004. What this means is that the precincts of Parliament is the area and land where the building or part of a building is under Parliament's control. This is inclusive of its chambers in which proceedings of the House are conducted and the galleries as well as the lobbies. For the duration of this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, this place will be the precinct of the Gauteng Provincial Legislature, and thus the standing rules of the legislature will apply and govern all the engagements that we are going to have today. Ladies and gentlemen, while many may regard February as a month of love and celebration, we recognize it as something that is equally as profound. It is a month in which we shine a deliberate spotlight on the physical disability awareness, which was the day on the 1st of February, focusing on breaking barriers and promoting inclusion for people with physical disabilities. We celebrate International Epilepsy Day on the 2nd of February, a global event that educates the public on epilepsy and to reduce stigma, often continuing with the Epilepsy Week. We celebrate the Rare Disease Day on the 28th and 29th of February, highlighting over 300 million people worldwide living with rare diseases and many of such which are disabilities. We believe, colleagues, that this is a time to raise awareness, to deepen understanding, and to reaffirm our commitment to inclusion, to dignity, and meaningful support. It is precisely for this reason that the Portfolio Committee on Education chose this month to convene the stakeholder engagement on special schools. Our timing is quite intentional. As the country reflects on the lived experiences of persons with disabilities and rare conditions, we believe that it is both fitting and necessary that we focus on the education system's response. particularly on how we support learners who require specialized and differentiated learning environments. By meeting in this month of awareness, we signal that this conversation is not incidental. It is deliberate, it is urgent, and it is rooted in our responsibility to ensure that no learner is overlooked, marginalized, or left behind. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we welcome you to today's engagement, and we are looking to having a fruitful discussion with yourselves. I'm then going to check with Mr. Kekana if we have any apologies.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to honorable members. Good afternoon to our stakeholders. Chair, I've received 2 apologies, one from Member Waters, the second one from Member Ali. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kekana. Ladies and gentlemen, you would see that we have shared our program with yourselves on the tables. And I'm just going to go through it just briefly so that we do understand how we are going to move today. Firstly, we have done registration. Now we are doing the welcoming and the opening as well as the declaration of the precinct. We have done introductions. We are now on the confirmation of the agenda. We must tell you the purpose of our meeting today. We must further then get a presentation from the Department of Education on the assessment on the support that is provided to public schools. The inputs and submissions that we are going to get, which are important for us today, are going to come from yourselves. We'll then move on to a vote of thanks. We'll have a way forward and closure. Members of the committee, this is the agenda that we have today. May I have a hand that seeks to adopt the agenda?
No, Chair, I stand to adopt the agenda.
You, Chair. Sorry, I second the agenda.
Thank you so much, members of the committee. We are now going to move to the purpose of the session, as will be indicated by myself. This is an engagement that is a focused intervention study by the Portfolio Committee on Education. It is an assessment of the support provided to special schools in the Gauteng province. Honorable members of the Gauteng Legislature, officials from the Department of Education led by the HOD, representatives of schools, our educators, SGBs, parents, advocacy organizations, and distinguished guests, good afternoon. It is both a privilege and a profound responsibility to welcome you to this important stakeholder engagement on learners with special educational needs. As the Education Portfolio Committee in Gauteng, our constitutional mandate is oversight, ensuring that the basic right to education is realized for every child. Today, we focus our attention on a group of learners whose needs call not only for compliance, but for compassion, innovation, and decisive action. Inclusive education is not a favor. It is not an optional add-on to the system. It is a fundamental right and a moral imperative. Our policies, guided by the frameworks such as Education White Paper 6, commit us to building an inclusive education and training system that recognizes diversity and removes barriers to learning. However, policy on paper must not translate into meaningful change in the classrooms. We are acutely aware of the challenges that you face on a daily basis in your schools. From long waiting lists for placement in special schools, from insufficient support services, including therapists and psychologists, from infrastructure constraints, from the limited assistive technologies, from the need for the enhanced educator training in inclusive methodologies, the emotional and financial strain placed on families, and at times the lack of parental involvement. Yet we must also acknowledge that when special schools are properly supported, adequately resourced, and staffed with skilled professionals, they become centers of excellence. Across Gauteng, we continue to witness inspiring examples of excellence in action. Institutions such as Sizwile School for the Deaf, located deep in the heart of the township of Dobsonville in Soweto, demonstrates to us that geography is no barrier to achievement, that when commitment and support are present, anything can be achieved. That school continues to embody and to strive for excellence in deaf education. We stand here today to also speak about you with immense pride of Dr. W.K. Duplessis School in Springs. The school caters to MID and SID learners. This school has achieved an outstanding 100% matric pass rate with 86% bachelor passes in 2025. This contributes meaningfully to the Gauteng's historic 89.6 provincial pass rate, but is also proof that learners in schools with special educational needs can and do compete at the highest academic levels when they are given the appropriate support. Earlier today, we visited Tembinkosi ELSEN School. I see principal has just entered. Welcome, sir. And what we witnessed in that school was nothing short of remarkable. The school caters to learners with autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, mild and severe intellectual disabilities, Down syndrome, ADHD, as well as visual and hearing impairments. Despite serving learners with more than 5 categories of disabilities under one roof, the principal and his dedicated staff are steering a disciplined and inspiring institution. Their learners are not only supported academically and socially, but also participate in various sporting codes. They have been competing provincially as well as representing us at a national level. I think this deserves a round of applause. Principal, if you can stand up so that we can clap for you properly. This, ladies and gentlemen, is proof that when leadership, specialized training, therapeutic support, and community partnerships align, it is a powerful reminder that when learners are supported, believed in, and taught in environments designed for their needs, excellence is not an exception, it is the expectation. These schools have produced learners who excel academically, who participate competitively in sports, in cultural activities, and who transition successfully into higher education, vocational training, as well as employment. With the right assistive technologies, curriculum differentiation, as well as multidisciplinary support teams, learners who were once marginalized thrive and contribute meaningfully to our society. These examples remind us, ladies and gentlemen, that the issue is not ability. The issue is access, the issue is investment, and the issue is consistent support. Today's engagement is therefore not only about identifying the shortcomings. It is about replicating excellence. It is us asking what works. How do we scale it? How do we ensure that every district benefits from proven models of success? Our objective is thus a threefold in this way. Firstly, we are here to assess the current state of inclusive and special needs education in Gauteng. Secondly, we need to identify systematic gaps as well as practical solutions. We need to strengthen accountability mechanisms to ensure measurable progress. We must move beyond reactive responses. We must plan proactively for the growing demand and strengthen early identification as well as early intervention systems. We need to invest in our educator development and ensure equitable resource allocation. As the portfolio committee, we say that every learner, regardless of physical, intellectual, sensory, or psychosocial barriers, deserves access to quality education in a safe and supportive environment. When we fail learners with special educational needs, we do not merely fail individuals. We limit the social and economic potential of our province. Conversely, is that when we get it right, we unlock talent, we restore dignity, and we build a more just and inclusive Gauteng. As we welcome the MEC, we want to say, let us therefore approach today's discussions with openness, with mutual respect, a shared commitment to practical and measurable outcomes. The Portfolio Committee stands ready to play its oversight role decisively and constructively, ensuring that excellence is not the exception but the standard. I look forward to a robust and solutions-oriented engagement with yourselves today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. With that being said, we are going to move on to request the MEC on behalf of the Department of Education to lead us in the presentation that they're going to give us on our focused intervention study of the support provided to public special schools. Welcome, MEC, and over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, honorable members, the officials of the department led by the HOD, and also the stakeholders present here. I think, Chair, I was just warming my seat now. But I'm happy that they did submit my apology that I have a family bereavement outside the province. So as you get older, you realize, malume nali tingwena malume ano. So as malume, I'm expected for be in that space. In time. So we have here our director, Dr. Costa, whom I do believe that she works very closely with the stakeholders that we have today. She's been quite, she's very, very, very good. I think I'm sure the stakeholders will attest that Dr. Costa is quite passionate in this area of focus that we are looking at. So the presentation, I'm not sure it's going to be done by you, the HOD, or Dr. Costa, so that it can explain how far we've come. It'll explain what are we doing. It'll explain what are the challenges that we're facing as a sector. But safe to say, because stakeholders are here, the sector is under pressure. We are under pressure, and it's quite important that I really raise that on members. And I also have to put this aspect in place that it's not a Gauteng problem. It's a national or nationwide sector challenge. It's a concern that we are having at the level of what we call CEM, Council of Education Ministers. We are currently applying our minds, trying to really speak to National Treasury to assist us. Because at this rate, we are going to start seeing some challenges crop up. And I'm sure you've seen that even the rate of, or the pace of intervention per request is now taking a bit longer than it used to. And that's precisely because of the pressures that we've been experiencing as a sector. And I'm raising this with you so that you're also aware that it's not necessarily the public ordinary schooling alone that is going to have this particular challenges. The whole system-wide pressures that we're experiencing. I know within the province we're really trying to intervene as much as possible. But what we are experiencing now is a consequence of some of our decisions that we have made in the past. I'll give you an example. And those decisions that we've made, all the time they are progressive, but at the expense of other areas that we need to fulfill. When other provinces, provincial education departments in other areas took a decision to lay off some educators, we said no. KZN, I think around 4,000. 4,000 educators were laid off in KZN. Western Cape around 2.3, 4, around there. We had to lay off 3.5. And you know, when you keep a teacher, you know, it puts pressure on the projections for COE. So 3,500 employees, we saved them. But however, at the expense of what? You know, because when you give, I mean, when you take, you must give. So we took a decision that we are going to preserve our educators, and correctly so, because within the system, when you look at the number of our learner population, those educators, we do need them. We do need them. So some of these decisions that we've continued to make, they've really affected how quickly we respond to the concerns that are raised within the department and the sector. I'm particularly passionate about this area. They know, you know, and I always say to them that I worry that I don't have enough time just to focus here and give myself this year just to focus on this area, you know, public special schools, just to make sure that I resolve as much as possible issues that are affecting this area. And there's a commitment that I've made. So I'll be working closely with Dr. Costa. I'll be visiting some of your schools. Amongst those visits, Chair, I like to do this thing called mystery shopper. You know the mystery shopper? Where I just arrive at your school with an Uber, almost probably wearing a red overall like the Honorable Ngobeni there. You are thinking that I'm going to close your gate or something. Just to get a sense of the service that you would ordinarily give to a parent. Because it's important, this thing. You know, in the face of a potential crisis, it's important that as those, especially officials, those who are in the department, we have to continue leading and providing that quality service with a smile at all times and patience. So I'll also be doing that, just to get us, and also be able to get the finer challenges that we are having, because sometimes all information might not even get to me. That's why some parents, when they come to me on social media or they find me in the mall, they speak to me as if I know their problems. And I don't know their problems. You know. So it's important that at least I'm going to be able to do that so that I get to the bottom and get to fix this. Because this is an important and vulnerable section of our population. Amongst those, Chair, we need to increase the number of our schools in this area. We need more schools. I know that our figures are sitting at around, say, 350 that are still in ordinary schools that need to be moved. Is that how many?
That's correct, 340.
340. And for me, that number is not correct yet. The number is much higher. It should be much higher, you know, consistent with the research. So obviously, then it means we need to be able to increase capacity so that we can, if we build more schools, I know we opened Dr. W.K. Duplessis is one. We need to build more schools, Chair, in that area, so that, in this area, so that we can get more of our learners supported. Because we do have children who are in public ordinary schooling and they are really struggling. They are really struggling. Unfortunately, I also have a child who's also in the schools. So I know at first hand, you know, what it takes to raise a child who needs special attention and focus. So that's why I'm saying that this is an area which I'm quite passionate, and I'm committing that we will be investing a lot more from our budget, amongst others, increasing capacity in some of our schools, so that we really can get more learners supported, so that we don't leave anyone behind, really. And I know that there are those schools that are a thorn, Achilles heel for me, like SBLN. It's a big headache for me. It's a big headache, but we're working around the clock to really come up with a proper solution, Honorable Mkhwanazi. Amongst those, I mean, Chair, is that we need to really move the kids out of that area entirely. That's the feeling I'm having. So we're looking at increasing capacity across other schools so that we can move our children from that. Because even if we renovate it, the area itself is not conducive for that type of school. So it's important that we put them in correct space so that they are supported. Because if you can't put them in a noisy, high density area where there's pressures, there's hawkers outside, there's what you call Honorable Dos Santos. I know you don't know them by this word, Mapara. You know Mapara? The ones that help you when your robots are dead, the robots are not working. So we don't want those people that are next to our school. I don't know. It's quite, for me, it's something that I don't want that. I can't accept that our kids are exposed to such a situation. So we are working, Dr. Costa, to ensure that we are able to then finalize. When we are done, we'll be able to then move our kids from that space. Because that is the building, it's a big issue that is HOD that has been brought to me quite a number of times, and I know of it because I was a portfolio chair like you, Honorable Miponi, with Honorable Dos Santos. We've been to that school together, and the situation is worsening. But I must tell you that don't also assume that because Natal Spread Hospital is closed, there's also a move to try to open that hospital now. And I don't know if you know. They're trying to open it because they left because of a sinkhole. So they're looking at areas where of the hospital that they can refurbish and utilize. But that is not our problem. That is their health problem. For me, my problem is Beleni and what next. And I'm not saying Beleni as the only school. I'm just using it as a for identification purposes that there are schools that there's one in Sidibeng. You can do the what? Do the Nendlela. I know you love that school, Mkhwanazi. There's Duze Nendlela as well. I don't know if members have been. I know if you go there, you'll fight with me. You'll be insulting me every day in all platforms. But what the issue there, Honorable Mkhwanazi, with Duze Nendlela is a land issue. The school is in between two properties. One state, and the other one is private. So these ones of private want to expropriate for themselves so that they can charge state. And we tell them it's not going to happen because this is half-half. So it's a big problem that we've been experiencing. So, and these small things, they really affect the pace of development because of the legal issues. We want to move, we can't because there's court, there's this, there's that. And it affects services. So when that happens, the public will have a perception that the department does not want to resolve the issue. So even with that school as well, we're also looking at how best to deal with it. Because if we don't resolve that issue of the land dispute, we can't do anything. We can't build on private property unless it's been expropriated and comes to us. Then we are able to. But if it's still that we can't touch it, we've had experiences many times of where we've built on private property, and we've been taken to task to a point where we can't even open those facilities that would have spent millions building. So that is what is happening there. But also, the school is also receiving special attention with the same ideas in mind that I'm having around its billing, so that we support the learners. So I didn't want to take much time, Chair, but I thought I should just flag out the most important aspect, that the system, the department on its own, we are under a lot of pressure. We get less money, but our problems are increasing. Our needs are increasing. We're doing the percentages with the HOD yesterday, Chair, that what we get as an increase is around 3%, but inflation is 4.3%, as an example. So it's not consistent, and that excludes the cuts, Honorable Dos Santos. So it's a cut and below inflation increase. So every year, things are going very up, and then we are getting less. For example, the COEs, the employee increase is around 4.5% as well. So the salaries are going up, at 4.5%, but we are getting a 3% increase. So it means the money must come from somewhere else. And what Treasury likes to do, they always protect the salary. So even if you can say, this is the budget I have, they will take it from you without even telling you and pay the workers, because that's their priority. So these are some of the things. There are many that I can list to explain to you the type of pressures we have, including the BELA implementation. Currently is not funded. The president signed, but there's no funding that's come forward to assist us with the BELA and its implementation. And it speaks about a very simple thing. From now, grade R is compulsory. So it's compulsory that we have all learners who are in grade R into schools. But there's no money. No money was given to us. An instruction came from the president. The instruction came from ministry that we have to implement, and by law. But we don't have the money. Then, so the money is not following the decision. So we are sitting with around 70,000 of our kids that are in private ECDs, and which by law shouldn't be, because the law is specific and it's clear that grade R is compulsory. So compulsory meaning it's a public commodity. They need to be with us. Unless we have ECDs that are classified as schools, then we can keep them there. But they are not classified as schools, ECDs. They operate under the Children's Act, not South African Schools Act. And BELA is under the South African Schools. So those are some of the things. That's why I'm saying that the system in itself is under pressure. We're managing. So because stakeholders are here, I must also brief them, so that they also understand that this is where we are and this is the type of things that we are dealing with within the department. Chair, through you, maybe I can give the HOD or straight to Dr. Costa to give us the presentation. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee, MEC, HOD, and my colleagues sitting here, a decision was made that I will present certain aspects today relating to special schools to assist with the discussion that should follow. So you will find that even though there's a lot of detail in the presentation, I will not go through it all. The idea is just to stimulate your thinking in certain areas, then you can take the discussion further. So we will briefly look at, I'm going to do an introduction. We'll speak about LTSM. I will give 1 or 2 examples of regional support to special schools. We will talk about infrastructure. I will just lift some of the elements of support to schools for the deaf. I will then talk about educator training and development, accommodation and concessions, financial management of institutions, and then learner transport, and then HR, one of the aspects, recruitment and selection, and then make some closing remarks. So up to 2-3 days ago, in Gauteng we had 130 special schools across 15 districts. Recently, the conversion of number 131 was approved by the acting HOD, and the school will start its operations on the 2nd of March, taking the number of special schools in Gauteng to 131. The new school is Tagalang Special School in Soshanguve Block P, so in Tshwane North District. So we are prepared, and we will, with the district, start the operations in March. So of this number of special schools, we have 29 of these special schools, Chairperson, that is currently regarded as excellent hubs of excellence that actively do outreach activities to surrounding ordinary schools, surrounding full service schools, and even the parent community. And as a collective, these 29 special schools that act as resource centers embarked on more than 300 outreach activities or projects where they were responsible for direct learner support, capacity building of educators, therapists, parents, school management team, governing body in the special school sector, but also the ordinary schooling sector. And also just to reiterate, as much as I am responsible for the special schools in the education department, it is not an operation that is run in isolation. We work closely with a lot of directorates to manage the implementation, and most of them were lifted in the presentation. And then also as a province, we believe that we must also guide national processes and decisions. So as GDE, we are actively involved in national task teams to ensure that the province is informed to support quality service delivery. One of the key task teams that we currently serve on is the National Task Team for Out-of-School Learners. These are the learners that currently find themselves in special care centers that were previously regarded as uneducable, but with profound intellectual disabilities. So in terms of the SIAS policy that is derived from the White Paper 6, special schools are regarded as schools that are equipped to deliver a specialized education program to learners requiring access to high-intensive educator and other support on a full-time or a part-time basis. And I think that is the one thing that we have to understand. Every child in a special school has been placed there because it was determined by a multidisciplinary team that the child cannot receive what is required in the ordinary schooling system. And that at some stage the child might return to mainstream or will conclude their education career at the special school. At special schools, the curriculum may offer from the ordinary CAPS curriculum. There's access to appropriate LTSM and assistive devices required to access the curriculum and other sport or cultural activities at the school. Additional support at these schools may include therapists, support staff, nurses. We have special schools that offer horse riding therapy and music therapy. So the idea is to provide a comprehensive service unique to the needs of those children. And as I said, the placement is not always regarded as permanent. Where possible, placement back into mainstream is facilitated. The one thing that we must understand, what makes a special school different from an ordinary school, where an ordinary school is by majority curriculum driven, curriculum must be coupled with a support program to make it a special school. So those are the two elements that we regard as non-negotiable. So just to summarize the possible 4 types of curriculum that you might access in a special school. You mentioned WK Du Plessis that offers the CAPS curriculum as you find in mainstream schools, so do many of our schools. Then we offer the technical occupational curriculum that is year 1 to 4. These learners then finish on a grade 9 level where they are able to participate in the world of work. Then we get the differentiated CAPS for learners with severe intellectual disabilities. At the end of their career in education, it is expected they will function on a grade 5 level. And then you get the learning program for profoundly intellectually disabled learners. And when they end their education career, it is anticipated they will be as independent as possible, mostly functioning on a grade R level. And then, as you spoke about the support programs that we offer, we group them into programs, and one of them is the deaf or hard of hearing, visually impaired, which includes blind or partially sighted, physically disabled, specific learning disability, and all the neurodivergent disorders such as epilepsy, cerebral palsy, autism, ADHD, and so forth. And what we say is, in order to increase access to education closer to home, in Gauteng we decided to diversify, and we have very few schools in Gauteng that is limited to 1 curriculum and 1 support program, and that made it possible for us to increase access to education. I'm briefly going to go through learner and teacher support material to say that there's only 2 schools that do not have Section 21C functions where they do central procurement. The rest of our schools all are responsible for their own procurement. They are provided with DBE workbooks where relevant, and they do get access digital supplementary material like any other school would. And then they also have access to all the DBE websites like any other school would. The one challenge that is a reality in our special schools, it is well known that our schools are well resourced, and therefore burglaries leading to theft of material, especially over holidays, is a reality. Schools are, in those cases, most schools defer their delivery of LTSM to the new year, trying to avoid a December feast for the criminals. So, but the reality is the schools are at risk, and therefore the majority of them have the burden of also additional security services at their schools. I'm going to just raise a few examples of district-based support, and the one area that I'm going to lift is the Gauteng North area. That is your Bronkhorstspruit area, Ekangala, that areas. And in that district, we have 2 special schools, Sizanani Special School and Protem Special School. And Protem Special School was previously regarded as a school at a stout school, or a school for children who are in conflict with the law. That has changed, and they currently are taking in learners with mild intellectual disabilities from the surrounding areas, and they do the technical occupation curriculum as well. So you can read this on your own, but what it is saying is that as an inclusive support service in the district, they do a range of services. They are actively involved as a district-based support team. They involve school-based support teams in workshops. There are many professional learning communities active where they also participate. And they do workshops related to SIAS and the implementation of SIAS in the ordinary schools in the surround. And they are also actively involved with the school-based assessment committees where they make sure that they comply with all the requirements of assessment for the curriculums. Awareness programs in those areas are critical. It's a more rural area, a lot of superstition, especially again in terms of neurodivergent children like learners with autism, learners with epilepsy. And there's a lot of awareness programs going on there, and therefore parent support sessions are also prioritized. So one of the examples of the training that was offered specifically for special schools was in terms of alternative and augmentative communication, classroom management, simple things like how to do pencil grip. Many of our grade 1 learners and grade R learners don't have that skill, and that they do in the ordinary schools as well. And then how to make your own resources, and then also dealing with challenging behavior. I'm not going to go through all these areas in detail, but what you can see is in terms of the implementation of the differentiated CAPS and the TOC, they assist with the implementation, capacity building, learner assessment, and resource provisioning. The district subject advisors also do curriculum monitoring and moderation. There is capacity building of school-based support teams. And then something that is very important in the special schooling sector is support with post-school transitioning. That is a huge challenge that our learners have. And I'm also going to just take you through, on the left of the slide, there's the examples of the memorandums that went out with training dates, and you can for yourself see that it is a comprehensive list of support capacity building initiatives taken. Then they also do what we sometimes forget, deal with issues of interventions at special schools, national school nutrition, and then also learner transport. The district-based support teams and the LTSM is actively supporting these schools, also complying with requirements of the provincial LTSM management. If we then go to the Sedibeng East District, you will also see that the areas that they support in is your governance and school management areas, such as school readiness, availability of documents for the annual academic progress reports, and then also school improvement and school development plans. We must remember that a special school is a school first, so it must be managed and governed in that way. They also then do school visits, and they provide mediation of ordinary curriculum activities. They also do the mathematics improvement plan, the reading improvement plan, and life skills support. You can see there the workshops that have been dealt with at the Sibonile School for the Blind, for instance, is your typical curriculum training, and then also very specialized to the school itself. One of the challenges raised that is compromising support to these learners at the school is that the national DBE workbooks are not availed in Braille, and the school is responsible to develop that themselves. They also deal with issues of admission. They gave detailed reports of their school-based support team functionality, and as the chairperson also mentioned, special schools celebrate the learners' abilities also using extracurriculum programs. The majority of our schools excel in the areas that suit them, and here it was mentioned that even Sibonile School went up to national level in terms of the extracurriculum programs. The National School Nutrition Program is also provided, going even further to provide relevant equipment that can even include clothing. And then learner transport is also mentioned. What is important here, and I'm not going to list all these questions or aspects that they look at, but in that district they focus a lot on the finance and administration, monitoring and oversight, because as we know, special schools do get more money, it also increases risk, so they tightly manage that. In terms of infrastructure support, MEC mentioned the need and the demand. So here is the list from our infrastructure section that will mention the current planning processes for special schools. And as you can see, number 2 relates to Ezebeleni. And at the end, I think there are 21 schools on the list for either refurbishment or building replacement schools. Then going to the specific support to the 7 schools for the deaf. Gauteng is the only province that have appointed subject advisors, one in GET band, one in the FET band, for South African Sign Language as home language. And these officials then went further and started to see how they can support sign language across the curriculum. Because learning in those schools is also limited by the fact that the sign language as medium of instruction has not been developed that far. So they play an integral part there. So I'm just going to mention here, one of the key things that they do is they do record at the Matthew Guniwe's studio lessons or example lessons for the schools. They also assist with the development of individual support plans. They have competitions to enhance use of sign language by sign language coordinators. And then in these schools, they specifically focus on the visual arts, an area in which the learners truly excel. So there's detail in terms of that. And then also further on the performing arts. And then knowing also that in the schools for the deaf, everything has to be reworked or redeveloped or adapted to make to move the subject from a written language to a visual language. And that is quite a challenge, but they use the studios for that. They just mentioned how they assist the learners in terms of IT and CAT. Then general curriculum support, especially in consumer studies and hospitality, an area where they excel as well, and also assisting with reworking the content so that it is accessible for the learners. If we then look at educator training and development, I'm just going to take you through it. You will be reading this on your own, but it is saying that educator training and development is as important for all educators and support staff in special schools as it is for those in ordinary schools. They will be included in all the relevant curriculum training, but there will also be additional training. So their objectives are not only to build capacity, but also to monitor and mentor towards full implementation. They just gave us a breakdown here of the training that has taken place in this financial year, starting April. So you would see that 168 educators were trained on the implementation of differentiated caps, and then they mentioned the subjects at the bottom, and the same with SIAS training, the modules that they did, and those deal with lots of areas of how to support a learner with ADHD in your class, same with learning disabilities, same with behavior disorders and so forth. And then also for subject advisors, training has commenced in terms of understanding SIAS and understanding the special education sector. Then moving towards the technical occupation curriculum, the aim has been to move on to the capacity building of educators to be true competent teachers in the skills areas such as upholstery, sewing, nail and beauty, and arts and crafts. Here you can see the number of educators that participated in sign language training. They are completing soon. And then also the utilization of bursaries to enable our educators to further their qualifications. And this gives you a sense of the types of bursaries that were awarded. Therapist-specific bursaries, school management team studies, and then there are 20 educators that are having bursaries to qualify in a range of areas related to inclusive education, from being very curriculum-specific to broader inclusive education. So future training programs is aiming at becoming much more specific into areas of behavior management in specialized settings and also multidisciplinary collaboration. Coming to accommodation and concessions, it is a topic that is very important for us, and many a time that equals the playing field, just for us all to be on the same page. A concession is usually granted for a learner in our setting who cannot offer all the subjects due to maybe a specific learning disability, dyscalculia or dyslexia, and they then offer the endorsed National Senior Certificate, which is a deviation from the policy, and that's regarded as a concession. Accommodations is usually extra time, use of reader, use of scribe, braille, sign language interpreter, and so forth. In other words, giving you the strategies to be able to show what you have learned. And we have a very specific project running with special schools, whilst also now complying with the new national manual on accommodations and concessions. And it was this last year specifically a true adjustment and change management for most schools in complying with the new requirements of DBE, but I am quite confident that we have cracked it, and this year it will go much better. So, as you said, Chairperson, special schools indeed did well. We had schools writing, and of all the schools that written, we had mostly 100% pass where these children had accommodations. The national pass rate for special schools from 2024 to 2025 also improved from just over 93% to almost reaching 96%, which is great, even considering the percentage of bachelor passes that was offered. It's just saying that when we equal the playing field, learners can truly portray what they have learned. Then if we look at special support, it is just to say that a concerted effort is made, not only by processes, but also by additional funding to make sure that learners can access accommodations. I'm not going to go through all these slides. This slide was just to give you a sense that the current process is underway and we will be managing. I'm quickly going to talk about financial management of institutions, and you will see that it is quite a formal slide where it is saying that it is important for us to know that governance is integral here, and it's important to look at financial oversight, budgeting and allocation, financial administration and systems, compliance governance, and then also capacity building. And just for the people here, that the majority of our SGBs will even tomorrow attend SGB training on these specific aspects. Risk and audit management, also asset management and risk mitigation. So there is just the relevant legislative pieces that govern the work, and then also closely working with third parties, with bookkeeping services and consultants. Talking about the school allocation transfers, it was mentioned that this year was quite a difficult year, but at the end all the transfers were made. But also just to clarify, in addition to the ordinary funds that an ordinary school gets, we also provide additional funds for hostel allocation, outsourced daily transport, school-based daily transport, and then also once-off transport allocation for schools that need that support. Support with municipal costs, specific funding for the blind and partially sighted as well as deaf, so that they can have their equipment serviced and upgraded. And as I mentioned with the accommodations, we do give additional funding for learner support programs. As you will remember in the beginning, I said a special school is curriculum and learner support, so we have to fund that aspect as well. We provide intensive social support services. It's an integral part of our schools, and then also for skills allocation. I'm going to then just say that in January, the last portion of the tranche was made, and we are now looking forward to the next financial year. In terms of learner transport, this is just the Gauteng learner transport program in general for all learners. I'm not going to go through there. I'm going to go through to the yellow section that says there are 3 possible ways in which a learner can be supported with transport to a special school. That is by means of the GDE learner transport program. special school funded school-based learner transport or special school funded outsourced learner transport, especially where there are routes with very small numbers of learners. Outsourced transport is used. It also gives you a sense there of the numbers that utilize each of those modes. It is very possible that a school can use all three modes. Mostly our schools where learners can independently travel, like your learners doing the technical occupation curriculum, we want them to make use of the Gauteng Learner Transport Program, as it demonstrates our commitment to mainstreaming of inclusion. So here is just the analysis of learners in special schools and the money, but to give you a summary to say, for this financial year, just over 500 million rand have been spent on learner transport for learners in special schools. It's the last portion that I'm coming to now, so I'm almost there. In terms of HR recruitment and selection, it is critical that we have the right educator and the right support staff members in special schools, and that is why, together with the Recruitment and Selection Directorate, as a Directorate for Inclusion and Special Schools, we are actively involved, specifically to make sure that support staff is appropriately qualified, but also registered with their relevant boards or councils. And then in the same way that the educators that we receive in the schools have the relevant curriculum, background, and qualification. In the past, it was found that you will have a school for differentiated caps, grade R to 5, but then you find a FET teacher being placed there. The methodology, teaching strategies, all of it doesn't match, so that is being fixed at the moment, and we critically look at the qualification of educators. I'm then just going to go to concluding remarks, where I'm going to say the GDE aimed at demonstrating its commitment to provide comprehensive support. It's acknowledged that special schools have specific functions in terms of White Paper 6 and the CIAS policy, and the aim is to consider learners for placement in a special school only when there is no other option. We actively participate in DBE activities so that we can make sure that our learners have parity of esteem. In other words, we value what they add as much as we value what ordinary schools offer. We acknowledge that there are currently financial limitations which directly impacts on the ability of the GDE to render access and support to ELSEN, the schools where they are enrolled and their families, as well as the district-based curriculum and assessment on-site support. But the GDE vision fully applies in the disability sector, where it strives to ensure that every learner feels valued and inspired in the education system. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Dr. Costa. That was quite a mouthful. I think that stakeholders would agree that it did give you something to think about, and therefore we are going to have a lot of fruitful engagements today based on the presentation that's been given to us, as well as the challenges that you face in your various schools. Just before I take hands from the stakeholders for engagements, let me check with members of the Portfolio Committee if there's any comments or any questions that you have to the department. Member Dos Santos, Member Mkhwanazi. Member Mkhwanazi, please come in.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions. Okay, first is the accommodation. How many schools have the sleeping accommodation for those learners? Specialization qualification only are accommodated on the special schools, or if anyone's have a qualification, maybe like she was presenting a diploma, a degree, master's, does they take any teacher but has only diploma but no specialization? Within the list of learners who qualified in the special schools, how long those who are waiting on the waiting list And then how long that is taking the department to accommodate those learners, because sometimes I had parents saying that they apply waiting for a response from the department. Monitoring for the special schools, the monitoring taking place as we are facing a challenge in the basic education that the normal schools, most of the time, department is failing to monitor those schools. Do you have as in those schools as dealing with? Okay, are my challenges that maybe you are facing from the learners in those special schools? How do you deal with them? Are you dealing them with the maybe side of the what we call social workers, or maybe need more intervention? How do you deal with those challenges? What happened if the learner who is finishing matric, what do you do after that? Maybe the learner reach, I don't know, I had at the school that we visited, they said they keep them until 21 years. And then if they finish matric, what after that is happening with them? Does those learners, they have access if they want to continue their studies, like example to go to the college or university? Does the university and the college accommodate them equally, like all learners that they finish matric? What do you do if the child does not have enough support from home? If a child does not have all documents are accommodated in those homes, in those schools? Thank you, Chair. Oh.
Okay, thank you so much, Member Mkonazi. I have just maybe 2 or 3 points that I also want to raise. Just firstly, I think that from the school visits that we would have conducted, because since the year began, we've been conducting a number of school visits, you find that the portions in terms of the food that is being given at schools in the NSNP, their portions are at a primary school level. And some of these schools have learners up to the age of 21. If we can get a sense why that is so, and if there is anything that can be done to ensure that at least their food portions are at the level of adults as some of these kids are. And then in terms of the bus driver allocation, I found that it's a universal problem across the schools that we have visited, that you have given them buses, which they appreciate, and you've given them the monies. The challenge, however, is that there's only one bus driver that is probably paid for by the Department of Education, and because most of them are quintile 1 schools, then it's difficult for the school to hire more drivers. They end up using the GAs as their drivers. So in terms of the plan around that, if the department can respond to that. And then one concern that I got when we were at Ezibeleni is that to a certain extent, some of the educators that are there have not been trained in inclusive education. And it's very problematic for them to interact with the learners, because at times they don't know how to treat them or how to react to when the learners do whatever that they do. So if I can get a sense of that, maybe if you can assist us in answering that, and then we'll take questions as well from our stakeholders.
Chair, thank you very much. And Chair, I think maybe the point, and I'm sure Dr. Hester will give the specific numbers. But I think just to clarify that when we use the word accommodation, it doesn't necessarily mean hostels in this case. Accommodation usually means having to compensate for some kind of barrier for a child to perform optimally in the exam. So they can go from getting extra time to getting people who read for them, people who write for them, depending on what their requirements are. But I think the number of hostels, how much? 30 schools, I'm told. The qualifications for the placement of learners, if I remember correctly. The qualification here is that there has to be a assessment of the child's barriers. And usually there are two broad categories. It is those that we classify as learning barriers or disabilities. And then there are those that are related to a genetic or related illness that needs to be considered. The usual process for that is that it is parent initiated. Two, that it is then teacher initiated at the school when a child is not coping. But in either case, they are then subjected to a proper assessment. And based on the assessment, they're then placed in the right program. So when we also say there are 314 learners still waiting, it could be a combination that they in the process of being assessed and then will be placed, or that they have been assessed and we're looking for the right program to place them in. The monitoring, there are two levels of monitoring. There is monitoring from the district, but there is a very specific team from the Inclusive Education Directorate, made up of specialists who will then go and deal with those specific monitoring, and they will deal with it from the speciality of that particular sector. Chair, I'm going to talk now as the acting HOD, and I've acted a few times. I don't get a lot of, or I don't think I've ever had a recommendation for an expulsion from an ELSEN school. And the reason is that I think they know how to work with children who have got challenges. If they are problematic and so on, we do have the right battery of people in there to assist them. I could be wrong, but I've never seen a case yet. Post-matric. I think the post-matric is a big question that is not only for the Department of Basic Education. I think it's becoming a national question. Where do matriculants go to next? And I think we need to also deal with this. As we sit right now, I think there is a protest action at UJ and Wits University, where they are demanding that children who applied should be admitted. And the university is saying there's no spaces. But if a child that passes matric from a special school and does meet the requirements for university, in most cases the university would afford them the same accommodation. The concessions would be provided. But the biggest problem we have is those learners that do not complete a matric. The opportunities for post-schooling opportunities is slim. And in most cases, the only opportunities that seem to be created by NGOs who have an interest in those specific disabilities. And they will try and assist to put them into programs. But we don't have an obligation on the private sector to absorb learners with at least good skills to get into a gainful employment opportunity. And it is something that the country needs to deal with, because there is a range of jobs that are geared towards people who can deal with those specific requirements of the job. If they don't get support from parents, I mean, it's a difficult question. But the fact that they're in school means that the parents are supporting the child. But what we not be able to do is to deal with the programmatic side at home. And I think for me, in my experience, and I'm sure Dr. Hester will add on, is we know that most of the schools do run outreach programs with parents on how to help their children. So it's not an issue. The documents, just like schools, is not a barrier to access. If there are no documents, it's fine. Chair, I'm surprised on the issue of the portions, but we will look into it. But those we would have to seriously see what is happening. But Chair, I think over time we want to work with ELSEN schools. That ELSEN schools must become self-sufficient in running all of these services. We don't want to be bringing in our service providers into the school. We should be giving them the grant like we do. Some of the schools run their own feeding program. And so we need to get the quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools to upgrade their capacity to manage these programs. I mean, a few years ago, quintile 1, 2, and 3 schools, mainly township schools, wouldn't have even had buses. And that we started a development program where we incentivized and we got it going. But we want the sector to be self-contained. They must not be dependent on third-party providers. And I think that is where we'd want to gear it towards. The bus driver allocation, I think we'll look into it. But I know that a lot of the schools historically, teachers would have had the code, is it code 10? Code 10. And they would then get an allowance for being the driver. And they would have multiple code 10s. It wasn't that there was a specified driver in any way. And the advantage of using teachers in some of the schools that I've seen is that the teacher is also observing the behavior at the same time and not just driving the bus. So there are advantages to that particular model, and we would look into it. But in these specific cases, we will investigate the issues. So 2 things about training, and it's partly the way the Personnel Administration measures under the Employment of Educators Act describes it. They just describe it as a teaching post. And over time, we've made sure that it becomes a speciality, that people need to have the right specialization. So we have 2 broad categories of employees in the schools. It's those that teach, actually 3 categories. Hester will help me. The teachers who teach, the professionals, the psychosocial support, the occupational therapists, and then it's the support staff who have to be trained to assist in the classroom. And that would be in addition to the normal administration. In my last engagement on this matter, even to become a principal of a ELSEN school, you can come from any school, whether it's in your background or not. And there's been increasingly a demand for an amendment to the PALM that would make speciality an important contributor to the recruitment. But as we start basically sitting at the moment, is that we don't have an explicit requirement other than the job description that we write. And in the job description, we would be specific to what these skills need to be. But in terms of the requirements, in terms of the law, it's vague on that speciality. And it's something that we'll deal with. Chair, with your permission, I'm going to ask Dr. Esther to add.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to deal with 2 aspects. The first one is the question about the entry requirements for educators. Again, there is no special pre-graduate studies for a special needs educator. So we need to receive them and then use in service training and bursary programs and training programs to capacitate. But it does offer an obligation on the teacher who enters the special education field to avail him or herself to be capacitated in that area. And that is something where we still struggle, that some will just want to enter, and then should they then need to become experts, they are reluctant to do so, but it is being dealt with. Then in terms of how long do you wait for placement, it's a very, very difficult question to answer. Some learners wait very long because a parent is very specific in the school that they have earmarked for their child. And even though other options are offered, they refuse those options for their own reasons. And they said, I will rather wait until you give me what I want. What I can mention is that of that 314, about 80 of them fall in that category, where they are waiting for a very, very specific school. But it's reality that the sector for neurodivergence, specifically autistic learners, have drastically increased, also because the quality of assessments at Department of Health has improved. So more and more learners are being diagnosed, and responding to that demand remains a challenge. And then the last thing that also come into play, many of these learners on the waiting list are also out of province, where you, for instance, have Mpumalanga that do not have any schools offering the national, the CAPS for up to national senior certificate for deaf or visually impaired. They all come to, I almost said South Africa, but they all come to Gauteng to further and complete their studies here. There's a number of learners coming from the Eastern Cape, physically disabled learners who need to enter the sector here. So that also puts strain on us. The reality is the demand is increasing and the provision is limited. Thank you.
Thank you so much, HOD and Doc. We are going to open to yourselves, colleagues, to take questions and comments that you might have, and even suggestions. Because as we said, that this is something, an education of a child, especially one with special needs, is one that we must all be invested in. But before I do that, I'm going to give Member Mkhwanazi to ask one last question, then I'm going to take hands.
Thank you, Chair. I forgot one question. Because I found out that you don't start from grade R if the child is already been disabled from the early age. Now must wait until you reach the age of grade 1. What age that you are using that to accommodate the children? Because some of the parents are keeping those learners because they are waiting the age that can for the grade 7 or 6 years for accommodation of grade 1. Why you don't have a grade R? Because some learners already they qualify to go to the special schools in the early age. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Mkhwanazi. Let's take your hands, colleagues. That question will be answered together with the questions that we're going to get. We are going to request that those that want to speak to please raise their hands so that we do not have abantu abavugelwa umoya. Njengomama Mkhwanazi. So I'm going to take hands now. I'm going to start there at the back. You are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. Is there any other hand going once? Number 8, number 9. We've got 9 hands, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to give you the time to speak, but let us be considerate of time as well when we make our points. If a point has been spoken to, you are welcome to say you are covered. So let us then take those hands, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, that's number 1. But please don't forget to indicate your name when you speak and the institution where you come from.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Prince Ndlovu. I'm the SGB chairperson for Johannesburg School for Autism. Actually, I've got 3 questions to be specific. The first one is regarding the infrastructure. I saw the list of the affected schools, and Dr. Costa, if you remember, I wrote many times to you regarding the infrastructure of Johannesburg School for Autism. I believe you've got my email and stuff, but I didn't see it in the list of the schools which are affected. And it's a pity the MEC also left, because I also wrote to him, although he didn't respond. I believe maybe this is the response of this meeting. So unfortunately he has left. The second one is regarding the transport. We didn't even know, I'm not even aware that the department is offering transport for learners. I don't know what criteria are you using to allocate the buses and to transport the learners. Reason I'm saying that the Johannesburg School for Autism has got more than 360 something learners, which most of them they require transport, and we are mostly relying on outsourced transport, which is not good at all for the kind of learners that we accommodating or we're dealing with. So I just wanted to find out what criteria are you using in that to allocate the buses. The third one is regarding, I believe the school is in Quantal 5, which is almost looking at it's in a Bramfontein area, which is, I believe that's how you might have allocated or determine on what quantal should it fall. But according to my observation, maybe it's quantal 3 or 2, mainly because the students or the learners that are attending, they are mainly from the surrounding locations. It's only a few which are from the CBD or the town itself. So yeah, and I heard the acting HOD stating that regarding the building of schools, and I believe this shouldn't be a fact after fact, but this should be a plan that the department has on, because I heard you talking about the waiting list and all those. This is not a new thing at all to the department. It's not a new thing. They already knew that the number of schools, special schools in South Africa, like you indicated in Mpumalanga, I don't remember how many. I only know of one in Mpumalanga, special school. So the department already know about what they should be addressing, and as in yesterday, not even tomorrow, but as in yesterday. So yeah, those are my only questions and comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Number 2 is here.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dr. Costa. Thank you, HOD. Thank you, everybody here. With the waiting list, the HOD touched onto it. If we can look at it from the behind side, from the other side, I do feel that there's kids in special needs schools who can be in other schools or mainstream schools. That is a concern. Sorry, I'm Lasara van der Spy, Connor Moore, SPG, parent, treasury member. Thank you, short and sweet.
I don't think we quite got your name and which institution you come from.
Lasaya van der Spy.
Okay.
SPG member Connor Moore, Treasury, parent.
Thank you. Number 3, Nanguput.
Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Mandla Mpofu. I'm the Deputy Chairperson of SANASE. SANASE stands for South African National Association of Specialized Education. On the presentation, I didn't see something on hospital schools. I would like maybe something on that. Number 2, admissions of learners to ELSEN schools. I know that we have alluded to the CS policy, and the MSc mentioned that there is no budget to implement IPELA, which is creating a problem because currently as it stands, the IPELA Act is very, it contains legal deadlines on when learners can be admitted to schools. And yet the current form of the CS policy is silent on that. And hence that creates long waiting lists for schools. I would also propose, Chair, that we might also look at an online admission system that may also assist, so that it fast track the admission of learners in special schools. I know that there's some documentation that you will need from your physios, etc., but I think if we've got an online system, you would be able to rationally place learners and cut the waiting time. Another one on admissions, I'm very much interested on the one of interprovincial transfers. You know, currently I know this is a GPL thing, but we do have, especially outside learners who, especially in KZN, where learners actually go from grade R to grade 7, and they need to move to Gauteng, like Dr. Costa, or maybe they should also touch on that. Also on provisioning of resources, I know that the MSc mentions issues with austerity measures that are currently in place, where budgets are being cut, etc., etc. But we would appreciate if the department could actually communicate promptly with the schools. Because what currently happens is we do have budgets that we adopt, we submit business plans, and to our surprise, you'll find that the money that is allocated for the school, you don't actually get that money. You say you are supposed to get 10 million, you maybe get 6 million at the end when you calculate, so there's a shortfall of around 4 million. Also, another issue on provisioning of resources, the challenge also we have is, we know that the financial year end of schools, actually the financial year of schools is January to December, but the actual disbursement is, we get it around April and say latest November. So it becomes very difficult to say, okay, financial year starts in January to December, and yet you are getting money, you know, 6 months into the financial year. So that also creates problems, because now we end up using our own monies, like your school fees, the monies that we have fundraised for other things, then they have to cover for service providers that we have to pay. On the last one on me, or the last one, on technical occupation curriculum, my understanding is currently the talk is not accredited with Umalusi, if I'm not mistaken. Now, if that is the case, what is the department's role in terms of aligning with CIT? Oh, I know that
programmed to switch off when you finish your 3 minutes.
Oh, okay. Okay, excuse. So this is the last one. In terms of the talk program, what is the department doing in terms of aligning? Because already we've got sitters, which say 70% practical, 30% theory. So if learners are not, if the department is not able to certificate our learners or accredit them, then why not align themselves with the sitters so that they say, okay, for this talk program, let us maybe align ourselves with MET SITA or MICT SITA for our qualifications. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much for...
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks. My name is Ishmael Mpele, the chairperson of the SGB at Sizanani Special School in Brongospruit. Region 7, Ward 104, Ward 105. Chair, the school, we have been renting the place for over 30 years now. Renting, I repeat, renting. So since our rent, we are having some challenges with the school. We've got problem with toilets, water. The environment as a whole is not suitable. The school and the district have applied for a vacant land through the head office since 2024. But there was no response up to date. And we also applied to move to a GDE property that's vacant and managed to get a sponsor that will renovate that building. But we haven't received any response up to now. So that's the challenge that we are having. The staff and the learners are really struggling. As I speak now, I was fetching water with containers now. Before I left, I came to the meeting. I was fetching water with containers to the school. So I would really humbly request, as you sit here, Chair, to hear our cry and request at Sizanani School. I thank you.
Thank you so much. I want us to continue on this row with number 9 and number 8. I know it's coming this side. I just want to finish this line that's going that side, then it's going to come to yourselves.
Greetings, Chairperson and the entire conference. I'm Mr. Welcome, the principal of Ezibeleni Special School. I just have a few things. I know that my school is a national crisis already. Well, when it comes to, I'm not going to talk about the school that I'm in, which is a school in a Dolomite area, Mazama every day. So I just want to talk about something that is very serious. The freezing of posts. So of PS posts to be specific. For a special school that has got borders, when you freeze posts and for a province, for one size fits all, it doesn't work for special schools. So I just want to check is there a plan to try and assist us as special schools. For instance, your hostel mothers, hostel fathers to be appointed, nursing sisters. Currently, I'm running a school without a nursing sister because it's gone to pension and there is no approval to appoint a nursing sister. Because PS posts have been frozen and even attrition passes on and you are not able to fill that post. So that is the challenge number 1. The other thing that I want us to check on is the issue of municipal bills. For some schools, it is very expensive. For instance, a school that runs a hostel, it won't be equal to the school that knocks off at 2:30 because they have to have running water 24/7, Saturday, Sunday. But the monies that we receive, if you compare these schools, the schools that do not have hostel, at times they get more than the schools that are CP, which have got boarding facilities. So I also wish that if that can be attended to, or else as a part of the solution seeking criteria, if can be looked at. And then it's unfortunate that the MEC has just left, just to address something to say, I understand the plan for the MEC to close Ezibeleni, which is not inclusive in nature. Ezibeleni doesn't need to be closed. It needs to be rebuilt because it has a site that was bought 13 years ago. So the question of when is it going to be built, that is the only thing we wish to hear. So now if the plan is to close the school, what about the site that was bought? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The last hand on this row at the back.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Thandi Nteka from Citibank Tech in Sebokeng. My concern, it was about our year fours when they go out of the school. Can please the department see that our certificate are accredited? Because when they left our school, they have to go and find jobs. And we train them, but unfortunate, they can't be credited with those certificates. And then secondly, the school has two, it's an MID and SIDs. With the SIDs, we'll request to have, at least the teachers have assistants to be assisted with. Because with SIDs, you've got 12 learners in the class. It's like double the amount that you are having. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's come to this table here. On this side. Emva wako Jackie. There were hands.
Good day, everyone. My name is Kim. I'm a social worker at Isiposetu ELSEN School. I think I have a concern and a question. So since the department says that there is a waiting list for learners who need to come to a special school, how certain are we about the capacity of the educators in mainstream schools to be able to handle those learners while they are awaiting admission at a special school? Because I'm saying this because at our school, when we do admissions, I usually see the parents of the newly admitted learners in order to activate or trigger parental involvement to be able to help them with acceptance and to help them with understanding the condition of their child. And most often, I find those parents complaining about the treatment that they have received in mainstream schools. And most often you also find that the learners would also be traumatized when they just think about a setting that has to do with education. So my question would be, are the educators in mainstream schools capacitated to handle learners with neurodivergent conditions? And just also as a comment, I think as a social worker as well, who is based in a special school, most of the time I'd obviously have to work with other stakeholders like health, the justice system, as well as welfare, also being DSD and so on and so forth. And also other NGOs, what I've found is that those stakeholders also struggle with understanding our learners, or they don't necessarily understand how to respond to those challenges. I'll give an example just so the House understands. We had a learner who was a foster child, and this foster child was a runner, right? So he would just run away from home just for sports, right? And there was just, they struggled to place him in a home because most of the homes were not certain, or they really wanted to understand his condition better. But I don't think that that information was, I don't know if I should say the information was enough, but I think they just didn't understand. They really had cold feet. And then when it comes to the justice system, it also has to do with some of them not being articulate, and also just being unable to say or talk about the crime that has been done against them. So most of the time when when children with neurodivergent conditions have a crime done against them, it's very difficult to get justice because it really is a specialized field. Even as a social worker, I can tell you it is a specialized field. That is why most often when we have these stakeholders coming to our schools, I try to be hands-on to be able to support them so that we can to ensure that we get the necessary support that the child needs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a hand at the table at the back?
Thank you very much, and let's welcome the presentation and appreciate this platform. My name is Mapule Mgomezulu. I'm the principal of Western School. It's based in Krugersdorp, Mohale City. We are stakeholders, but I need to say I am rising to applaud the Gauteng Department of Education, because whatever that was presented by Dr. Costa in, is it our HOD? It's exactly as is. Now it will be like we are questioning our own presentation. Nevertheless, we want to applaud and also appreciate when Parliament has called us, a committee that sits in Parliament, and I think your role as per the synopsis that you have gave us when it comes to your oversight on law making, public participation and public hearing, focusing on interventions, will really assist us. In short, assist the Gauteng Department of Education in ensuring that the other loopholes that we have are covered. And I think Dr. Costa was clear when she indicated the challenges, and indeed to confirm we have them. The issue of treasure playing its part. Western School is 58 years this year. And we've got a roof which is a zinc. It's old. And if it's not taken care of after everything that is done, and we have received, of course, feedback to say financially austerity measures are hitting all of us. But then the ripple effect that the challenge that we have from the roof will then have within the school will be massive. Because then it talks to, number one, the safety of the learners when it comes to rainy days in a special school of learners who are physically disabled, the repercussions thereof. The issue of transport, as I'm saying, we affirm and we applaud the issue of transport that we are getting, Dr. Costa, in a form of fleet that we have at the school, in a form of outsource that we have, assisting a lot of our children to access education. We really applaud that. And on the issues of post-establishment of special schools, I think we need to visit that because we are also declared an essential services. Now, if you are declared an essential services and we are not taken care of when it comes to things like post being frozen, especially when it comes to your nurses. I have sleepless nights when I think of hostel learners with one nurse. And we're still fortunate enough because we've got 2 of them, but 1 not yet appointed. So if Treasury can come in and really assist through your office, Parliament, in ensuring that all those things are attended to, we'll appreciate. The same with patrollers. We don't have a post-establishment accommodating us when it comes to safeguarding our schools, and we end up using wrong people for the position, whereby at times we'll have incidents where people are getting hurt because then a GA will have to be at the gate or even look at after our schools after hours. We also want to uphold the MEC in absentia when it comes to also the province in the form of the PYEIs that we get, and we are hoping we will be getting them. They really assist when it comes to human resource. Last year, Dr. Costa, again, we appreciate the assistance when it comes to getting the funds to at least expand when it comes to children or students, youth that is unemployed to come and assist us. We really appreciate that. But once they leave, it becomes a problem. Like now, we don't have them. And we really do not want to find ourselves in the first page because we still want to make sure GDE is safe, even in our schools, to make sure we are not all over the newspapers on things that we could have really prevented. I spoke about the nurse. It's set, again, Parliament, I think speed up the process. We cannot be having Bella and we are saying you don't have funds. We are talking inclusive education in all the schools, but we are struggling to manage just special schools. It raises a concern as much as we are welcoming the inclusivity, but if we are still challenged within the special schools on the loopholes, it will become a problem. So we are hoping this platform will really make life a little bit easier for our Gauteng Department of Education with all the wonderful work that you've already done to be even more and better than what it is now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it should be the last two hands. Or are they? We are fine. We have been satisfied. Okay. I would have thought that, or I would have wanted for some of the principals that we interacted with as the portfolio committee to maybe mention a few things, but I think there's a school, HOD, in Soshanguve. The name of the school is Boiphatutwe. I struggled even to Boiphatutwe. The principal is sitting here. When we got to the school last week, she was alone. We did a surprise visit to the school. She was alone because there's no water at the school. And they don't have any other additional facilities to assist the school if there's no water. So I would have wanted you to raise that challenge when the department is here, so that it can be heard by the department that this is the type of challenge that you experience when there's no water for a whole week. It means your children for the whole week are sitting at home, and the difficulty that possesses to your school.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. Okay. I'm Anastasia Mangani from Wepatutsi Special School. The group that visited last week, when they got there, it was our 7th day of us not having water in the section that we were in. We do have 2 JoJo tanks, but by then they were empty because the past 5 days, 6 days, learners were coming to school, and then there was water throughout using the JoJo tanks. But on the 6th day, which was we did not have water from Wednesday, and when the committee came, it was on a Thursday. Parents on a Wednesday, they said their learners are not coming to school. We did not say they must not come to school, but it was an issue of us not having water, because on that very Wednesday, we had to knock off earlier because the JoJo tanks are used for them, the toilets, the food, and everything that's supposed to be used for water. Hence, the 2 days, you came on a Friday, Wednesday, Thursday, the learners were not at school because their parents said so, and on a Friday. But we do have 2 JoJo tanks that were empty by then because of the 7 days that we did not have the water. And it's City of Tshwane.
It's City of Tshwane. No, indeed, I know that it's not a departmental challenge. It's just that, you know, some of these things that affect our learners and having them to stay at home, it really does affect a number of issues. I want to give it over to yourselves, HOD and Dr. Costa, to then maybe give responses to the stakeholders. And again, congratulations to the principal of Ezibeleni. He is a new from the box principal. So we are hoping that your national challenge will be resolved because now you are there to steer the ship.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to respond to Member Mkonazi first, the chief stakeholder. But I want to respond to you in taking into consideration what Kim said, and it's very important. The Child Act creates an integrated service framework for children and children with disability. And especially with children with disability. The process starts in the prenatal clinics, not antenatal, not when they get to school. At the level of the prenatal clinics, they're supposed to do the testing that that is supposed to tell us whether the fetus is at risk or not. And they need to put into place medical measures to address that. But in the antenatal process, children need to be diagnosed as to whether they are functioning according to the age requirements or whether they are disabilities or whatever it is. And what we find is that that doesn't happen. Ideally, by the time they get to the schooling system, we should have had a file that is already thick, full of information and assessments that accelerates placement in a way that just shows it's a flow. And so as a result of that and historical ways of dealing with it, the biggest problem is that it was always seen as a care function from birth to the time they get to school. And as a care function, it was with social development. So they would be taken, either the parents would be supported, they'll get the grants and all of those things, but nothing beyond it. I know a large number of our schools here, even if the law didn't say it, were already allowing children as early as 3 and 4 years old. But it wasn't systematized, it didn't happen universally. And so Bella now says that we've got to take in children even earlier. So I think it's 3.5 turning 4, which would basically then say they come into the schooling system. So for me, that is something that is unfortunate, because the Department of Social Development, the Department of Health, all of them are involved in this. And because we as an education department are succeeding, we are increasingly becoming responsible for all of the needs. So even the children with profound intellectual disability, we are required to provide them with educational programs. I know there are plans that function will now move to us, which means we've got to operate that sector. And it's simply a way of integrating it. But by integrating it doesn't mean that all the other departments are not going to play their part in the story. Johannesburg School of Autism. I thought he was going to raise all the issues of the non-payments and the switching off of water and electricity. But it is a serious case. I'm told by Dr. Hester that it is on the list that we presented. So the school is on the list for movement or replacement. I think the transport of learners with autism is just that children with autism cannot travel by themselves. They can't get onto a bus. But the approach to dealing with scholar transport is that the school needs to write a proposal. And the proposal would be considered and activated in some way as a response to what needs to happen. The issue of funding, and I'm going to deal with all the funding issues in one go. I have been very partial to the ELSEN sector as a planner. And when we deal with the budget, our per capita expenditure in ELSEN in Gauteng is the highest in the country. We spend more money per learner in this province than any other province. And we've been able to protect the program budget over the last 5 years to minimize the impact on ELSEN schools. It's not as drastic as the cuts that we've seen in Program 2 for ordinary schools. We've been able to contain the cuts, we've been able to soften the blow, but we're now at the ceiling. We are not getting additional money. We have not changed the post-establishment for 5 years. We are going into year 5 of the same number of teachers being employed because we've got no extra money to hire additional. And when that happens, all that we're doing is balancing the numbers across schools. But the number of teachers being shared across schools are not changing. The point that I want to really take, and I will work with Dr. Costa on this, is the issue of professionals, especially the hostels, the nurses. That I will definitely have to find a solution, because I think that is essentially a non-negotiable. And that we will definitely deal with. How we get there, even if it means us having to reprioritize, that I will deal with. I already have a meeting with the post-provisioning person on Monday, Dr. Hester, so we can just add this item on there. The point that was raised about the classification of learners, I think the parent left. Chair, historically, whenever a child was being naughty and they couldn't explain it, they would say the child needs to be in an ELSEN school. That's how it worked historically. Whether the child, but I think for me, importantly, and it is also as a result of budget constraints, that the model that we want to create is not working properly. And that is the issue of focus schools, the resource schools, to work in a hub and spoke approach. And we do have a large number of schools that do have special and remedial classes. But it is not as common as it used to be. It's kind of disappeared. So learners that have learning disabilities should not be taken out of the schools. A child, I know that being in a wheelchair is a disability of sorts, but there is no intellectual limitation for the child to be in an ordinary school. So why should they be in a special school just because they're in a wheelchair? And that is the adaptations that we've got to deal with. It's one of the reasons why we build schools flat. We don't go up anymore. We don't build 2 and 3 stories. And it's simply to be as accommodating as possible. And so we need to kind of make sure that we are classifying learners properly and placing them in the right program in order for us to also optimize services. So people with dyslexia should not be in a special school, but they should be in a special program in an ordinary school with a qualified teacher who can help them to adapt to that condition. And so we are looking at those specific aspects. The hospital schools were not here, but it's an issue that we're going to have to look at in more detail. The hospital schools are temporary and transitionary. A child has got a chronic decision that requires them to be in a hospital for an extended period. They should then be expected to receive an education program customized along where they come from. But we know that there's a lot of bad practices in those hospital schools as well. When children are kicked out because they're pregnant, they are put into hospital schools in some cases. Now, for me, those kinds of practices we're going to have to deal with. But I think, and it's something that Dr. Hester will help me do, I think hospital schools have lost some definition over the years. And I think it's something that we will relook at and deal with it. Let me explain the MEC's point about Bella. So Bella makes particular commitments. One, it says that grade R must be school-based. It then says that grade R in special schools automatically means it must be formalized, but it must also then be open to bringing in learners that are younger as part of an ECD/grade R approach. When we say it's unfunded, for some reason, there is no transitionary mechanism in the law that says you will do this over 3 years. That is the limitation of the law. It should have said over the next 3 years, you will gradually realize this in 3 steps. but it doesn't say that. And as a result of that, there's an expectation of a big bang solution. So let me give you the grade R where the MEC was most probably coming from. We've got, according to our survey, 70,000 learners sitting in ECD centers, the majority of which are not registered with the department. We don't know what the qualifications of the practitioners are. We don't know if they follow in the curriculum. But they call grade R or they call grade naught. But now that it is a school-based program, it means we've got to bring them in. If we have to bring them in, we've got to build 2,000 classrooms. Even if somebody gives me the money today, the construction industry will not be able to turn around that as fast as we would want. We would then have to hire 2,000 qualified teachers now, no longer practitioners. Now, that is where the money starts becoming a pressure point. And I think for us, in extending that 70,000 or included in the 70,000 are learners with special needs. So some of those 2,000 classrooms would have to be in special schools. Our problem with special schools, and it's not that we wish it on ordinary schools, we can't afford overcrowding in special schools. It is so sensitive in terms of the needs of children that the minute you have overcrowding, you're going to end up with serious problems. The ratio currently in Gauteng is 1:16. Or is it a little better now?
For the blind, it's 1:8, deaf 1:8, physically disabled 1:10, 12, and your learners with intellectual impairment 1:15.
Okay, so, and it's better than what you see in other provinces. So clearly, we take that into consideration. So we are trying to manage that. But we are making a bid for money. We will do it incrementally. But the option that we would want to consider is those that are able to qualify for school, we will then register them as schools. The interprovincial transfers, as long as you're a South African, you can come to the school. That's the approach, unfortunately. There is no formal intergovernmental arrangement. The problem, though, is the funding. When they count that learner in the stats, the provincial equitable share formula is only adjusted 3 years later. So if they come in at grade 8, when they're in grade 10, it's the first time we see any money for them. That is the limitation of the model. But there is no barriers to this. I think we still got the largest concentration of ELSEN schools, and we will attract people. So that is not going to be an issue in any way. I take the point on communicating, but I want to deal with the issue of what we promised you, you didn't get. That's not true. What we promise you, you will get. When that indicative letter goes out, it's a commitment. When we do the transfer, it's based on the same schedule that we had published as that. And so we know for a fact that in the last year we've had a problem where we were unable to give you the money in the prescribed tranches because of cash flow problems with Treasury. And it is the first time in 25 years that we paid you in installments. Now that I can apologize for. But we didn't shortchange you. That I can guarantee you. So I think for me, I'm going to ask Dr. Hester to deal with the TOC, but let me deal with the issue very quickly about the financial year and the school year. Maybe some of the schools you're referring to are out of sync, but the majority of schools know that they get their money in April, the first tranche, but they get it for 12 months, not for the academic year. So we've had, over time, got schools to get into a cycle. The money that you get in May and November is with a view to resource in the next academic year. That's how we've always worked. The overheads are from the year, and you've got to make sure that you have set aside enough money for the first quarter of the academic year. And that's the kind of assistance that we could even provide and help the school to adjust to that particular cycle. This is a Nani Trust. I thought you were going to raise the issue that there's a contractual dispute. Chair, just telling them I know these things, so it's not like I'm remote from the problems. But it's an issue that we will try and solve. Let me just tell you about the land ownership issues. We don't actually own land. You can claim that it's owned by the province, but the custodian of all land is the Department of Infrastructure Development. And so if we want to buy a property or develop a property, the first people that we've got to go and talk to is infrastructure development, and they need to deal with it. I was whispering to Dr. Costa here, we were not aware of the option about the GDE property. You called it, but it's something that I think we'll talk about. But we don't want to continue with that. When I saw that contract renewal and the problems we had, the first question I said is, why has it been so long? And so we will deal with those particular aspects. And so the issue of water, I think is going to be a problem across the board. Now, Chair, those that have got JoJo tanks as an example, historically, we had a standing agreement that all they had to do was pick up the phone and call the supplier of water and they'll deliver. We'll pay for it. But our contracts were terminated. So we are currently in the process of renewing those contracts. We had a technical problem where the Treasury said, but you can't use the infrastructure grant to pay for water. And they said, and we've been doing it for 20 years. And then all of a sudden they said it can't be there. So we had to take it out. We had to go and reprioritize funding. The tender went out. We are now in that process of procuring. What we need to do is, I think we need to have a meeting with the municipalities. Now, I will tell you about Hammanskraal, Soshanguve. The biggest problem in that area is, even if there's water, the water pressure is not always good. You know, if everyone at the bottom is using the water, when you get in up there, you won't get water, even if the water is flowing. And we've raised this continuously with the city, and they don't seem to be able to deal with it. But we will deal with water in some way. The Dolomitic area story, the best we can do at short notice is to go and deal with preventative maintenance. Now, when a school is in a Dolomitic area, or then the single biggest assessment that needs to be done is how is the water flowing on that property. Because if the water is not flowing properly, and if it is standing in particular spots, it seeps into the soil and then gets into the dolomite, and then it basically erodes the dolomite. So the single biggest thing about that, so one of the things that you do at your home, if you're in a dolomite area, is put concrete on the entire ground. You don't have a garden. But when you're building homes and property, is that you build aprons so that the water flows away from the building. And those are things that you can do as a preventative measure. We were supposed to open a school chair called Windmill. Windmill Park is in a Dolomitic area, not the school itself, but the area is Dolomitic. We had to go to the Geographical Council to go and get a certificate that the way the school has been built will not result in sinkholes or problems. That is why the school was delayed. Now, those things didn't happen at the time we built all the existing schools. And so we have asked one of our GIS specialists to take the dolomitic maps and map all the schools over that. Take all the current reports of sinkholes and put it over to know which schools are at risk. And then we will basically try to see how we can deal with the high-risk schools first. So we are dealing with those particular aspects in some ways. I've dealt with the freezing of posts, and hopefully we will get back to those things. Chair, the issue of municipal bills, is that the new principle? Let's pay your account. Unfortunately, there are two things you need to do firstly. Firstly, you need to check whether you are classified as a social site. There are far too many schools who are still registered as business sites. And municipalities don't want to change it because it increases their revenue. So I think that's the first thing we need to check. The second thing that you need to check is whether you've got water leaks. The third thing that you've got to do is you've got to manage water utilization. The Department of Water and Sanitation gave us a figure the other day that in Western Cape they use 169 liters per person per day. Gauteng is sitting at 264 liters a day. Now, if we reduce personal usage to 169, there wouldn't be a water crisis in Gauteng. But added to that is municipalities fixing up their leaks as well across the board. Chair, we do have some funds that we try to budget to bail out schools where the municipal services are beyond the capacity of the school to settle. But that they will have to apply, and then we'll have to investigate to see how we can assist. The PYEI is definitely going to come back. We're just waiting for a formal announcement from the presidency as to which date will be the kickoff date. I think the rest, Dr. Hester can address quickly. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm just going to deal with the issue of the technical occupation curriculum. I think one of the things that we are feeling as a sector in Gauteng is that when the pilot started in 2018, we really rushed to be ready. And we were ready far sooner than other provinces, which then delayed the conclusion of the pilot project. Then the next thing came into play that was realized is that the qualification was presented to Umalusi and it wasn't found to be on the level of NQF1, which was the General Certificate in Education. So the DBE was sent back to the drawing board to adjust the curriculum, and that is why even now, 8 years later, we still regard it in pilot phase. What we in Gauteng did as an interim measure to support you is to give you that learner support funding that would enable you to allow your learners to access unit standards from the CETAs. For instance, in tiling or some practical element. It would not give them a full qualification, but what many schools offering the TOC did very successfully is that they worked with the providers of the unit standard, where they even in school prepare the learners with a theory part, which is more difficult for outsiders to deal with. And they prepare the learners for the assessments, but that then the assessors come in and assess the skill that is also given at school. With that, at least our learners now leave with unit standard qualifications. But we fully agree with you that we are desperate for the qualification to be formalized. I think in terms of parity of esteem, we once had a case in one of our special schools where the school procured matric books for the children. so that at least they could have a matric book to show somebody to say that they were in matric. And trying to help them to get, I mean, it was short-sighted, and but it was in an effort to give them that access to the economy. But what many schools have done very successfully is having business breakfasts with possible employers in the immediate surrounds, where they get these employers to understand the learners and to get the children to do part practical or job shadowing. And what we have realized is that many of those employers start to absorb learners, specifically from special schools, because of that synergy of what is needed in the community, and well as preparing the learners specifically to take on that qualification. But it is a desperate need to formalize that qualification.
Chair, I think that covers the question.
Thank you so much, HOD and Dr. Costa, for those answers. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are drawing closer to the end of our program. What I am taking away is the HOD's commitments that he has made to yourselves, and we take them very seriously. This is the reason why that we bring the department to yourselves, so that you can be able to raise some of the issues that we may not be aware of, so that you can raise them with the department and you are able to get the assistance that is needed. As much as we do oversight over the department, we also find ways to assist schools through interventions so that you are able to get your schools running properly. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to request our member Mkwanazi, to do a vote of thanks for us. Kwan?
Okay. Thank you, Chair, for giving me this opportunity. Let me say thank you very much to the stakeholders, the department. Also, there is an association I think was asking some questions. Also for supporting all the schools that they need help. Let's hope next we'll get all those answers that you asked. They respond from the department. We are looking forward. Have a safe trip back home. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Member Mkwanazi. We declare this meeting officially closed. Thank you so much for joining us today. Continue opening your doors for us when we come to your schools.